This is Henry Frederick of Headline Surfer, and this week for the Sunday Conversation, I have the privilege of interviewing Jim Cameron, Vice President of Government Relations for the Daytona Beach Regional Chamber of Commerce.
That's me. Thank you, Henry.
Of which we're a proud member.
Yes, sir. Appreciate having you.
In our rookie year.
Yes, sir.
Jim, tell us about a couple of one or two big highlights of 2012 as the year winds down.
Henry, the main issue that we've had this year, as every year for the most part, is budgets. This is all cities throughout Volusia County, as well as the county and school board. Budgets are critical to the bottom line, not only of local governments though, but that tax rate's critically important to businesses though. And we want to make sure that all local entities have a frugal budget, but we want to make sure it's still a responsible budget that meets the needs of our citizens. And we're also trying to push economic development in those budgets as well.
Let me ask you this as a sort of an intro. How healthy is the chamber overall in terms of its mission in the greater Daytona Beach with this economy being entrenched the way it is? Holding your own?
I'd say holding our own, sure. I mean, everybody would, like to be more active and all, including us. But again, these difficult economic times, I mean, we feel that we're doing well though.
In Daytona Beach, there's been a lot of discussion about special events like Bike Week and things like that, speed weeks, and then more of the family tourism events like the Turkey Run and Thanksgiving, which was very successful this year. It looked like the numbers came up pretty strong. Yeah. I realize you're not the Convention Visitors Bureau, you're the chamber, but as a person that's in charge of government relations for the chamber, how challenging has it been this year to get the different governmental entities together to say, hey, we need to start looking at holding our own while pursuing other opportunities for tourism and business development in Greater Daytona Beach?
And Henry, again, what we wanted to do there is to make sure that we find that balance for special events, that they're compatible with not only our family tourism base and our convention tourism base as well, but also we want to make sure that these events can coexist peacefully with our local residents.
Yeah, well, one of the big complaints, obviously, from someone who's covered Bike Week over the years is the noise and the rowdiness, but it's not as bad as, like, let's say MTV was in the 80s with the beach and the drinking and the parties.
I remember those days.
Yeah, and Bike Week has really cleaned itself up over the years in terms of you don't have the outlaw Hell's Angel types or anything like that. But you still have your carnage of highway-related fatalities. Is there a way to find a happier medium where you can get more family? Like, for example, the Christmas Night Light Parade. I can't remember the official name of it, but it was the first one that Jeffrey Hens put on from the Halifax Advertising Authority, and it seemed to draw a lot of families that night. Can you come up with more of those kinds of events?
Well, and another good example, adding to that though, is like like say Al Smith is doing over there, the ice skating rink over there at Ocean Walk. But more so, maybe holiday type of events though.
It must be hard though to find the bigger ticket. The ice skating thing sounds great, but it must be harder to find like something that's complementary to, let's say, Bike Week or the Daytona 500 and Speed Weeks. I would assume that's got to be the mother of all special events.
And a lot of these things, they take time to grow. I mean, because I think we're talking about 70 years as far as Bike Week.
Well, but Biketoberfest is now what, 10, 11 years old now?
At least.
And it looked like it brought a resurgence back, but of course, having Mitt Romney and his Paul Ryan
down there at the
band show, and then having all the bikers here for it was a warm, nice weekend for that.
Exactly.
Tell us about the political season in terms of, as government relations, in terms of, there was a lot of change over this year with the elections, a lot of incumbents, a lot of longtime stalwarts, Frank Bruno, for example, gone, Carl Persis, gone, Dorothy Hugel's still hanging in there, people like Pat Northey still hanging in there, Jason Davis, a new face to the county chair, and Derek Henry is the new mayor who spoke obviously this morning before your eggs and issues. Tell us how much of a challenge it is for you in developing the mindset for what your needs are as the government relations head for the chamber in terms of these new faces for government.
We're still optimistic. We're very much optimistic, though, with these newly elected officials, because, again, yes, they are going to have a learning curve.
It's so fresh that they haven't even
Oh,
been.
yeah.
Henry's only been in office for a few weeks, and Davis doesn't get sworn in until like January 10th, although he takes
But you got to
over
remember now,
January
Derek
1st.
Henry had the experience as a city
Right, as a
commissioner
commissioner.
several years ago.
Yes.
But again, it's still, with some of these individuals, it is going to take a learning curve.
Now, I know that you've also made at least 1 or 2 visits to Tallahassee during the legislative session for things like, budgeting for a concern among local governments for things like...
Organizational session.
Right.
This was our last trip.
Things like, what were some of the issues? The unfunded pension liability issues for the police and fire, was that among them?
Pension issue, that's going to be discussed as far as an issue up there legislation-wise in the upcoming session.
What about this past session? What was some of the key
There were a
elements?
couple of bills, one filed by our own Fred Costello this last session, did not go anywhere. We're hoping it's going to take a different turn this upcoming session, though. Another one is what's called district cost differential formula, the state funding formula
Oh, for the schools.
for schools. And Volusia County is the hardest hit school district in the state. We've lost $97 million since 2004, the most of any school district throughout the state.
It's kind of ironic, though, that when you have something like, we live at the world's most famous beach, whether you're from Ormond all the way down to New Smyrna Beach, where we are, our family. It's like you're penalized because people take into consideration, well, if you live by the beach, hey, that takes the place of salaries and things like that. But in the grand scheme of things, teachers taking care of their families, it doesn't go very far, does it?
I still can't comprehend as to how living close to a beach and all the amenities that we have, as far as I know, groceries still cost the same.
And it's funny, too, as many times as we've been to the beach, after a while, it kind of, you don't do it as much.
Oh, yeah, well, that, and it's just, but still, money is money. And true, this is a great place to live, but we get back only $96.50 or 96.5 cents for every dollar we send to Tallahassee in the form of education, and we feel that's got to change. Another issue that we're looking at, again, we're going to be pressing this as we've done for the last 5 to 7 years, and that is internet sales tax. It's not a new tax. It's not taxing your Bright House or AT&T or Mindspring type service or whatever. It is only on purchases that you make from online retailers
Like Amazon, book sales.
Amazon.com, Overstock.com, those type purchases.
So that wouldn't impact our little local website that we have, the internet newspaper.
No.
Where we do local ad sales.
It might impact you. If you're selling to somebody in Alaska,
No,
yeah.
no.
But what we're saying, it's a fairness issue because our local merchants are the bricks and mortar type merchants, though, they have to collect and pay that sales tax.
Kind of like the same thing as the big debate that's never going to end. It'll never see an end, as far as I can see, with the itinerant vending, where you have people that have buildings in Daytona and surrounding communities for these special events, and they gear up for this with all their supplies coming in and bringing on extra workers. And then you have someone from out of town that sets up a tent to get a permit for X amount of dollars, and they're just selling the stuff and then they take it with them. It's kind of a tough thing to deal with, isn't it?
And that was, and I'm glad
that's
you
gonna be
mentioned,
one of
that
the
was
biggest
one of our
challenges
exit
for the
issues,
chamber.
breakfast issues. That we discussed at one of our breakfast meetings earlier this year, though. But we're still trying to find that happy medium that everybody can live with.
So, you've been on the block here quite a few years. How many years altogether?
Going on 30 years.
30
next
years
April.
in April. So you've seen the highs and the lows. I'm sure there isn't anything you haven't that's gone by you the second time around. What has struck you the most about this past year, say, compared to other years, in terms of anything that comes to mind that was unusual?
Right offhand, I would say the voters.
The fact that they came out strongly on election
They came
day?
out very much on election day, and we did have a change of course, with
Speaking of
our
convention,
city and county elections.
but speaking of conventions, it had to be pretty exciting. You've got Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan in Daytona for Biketoberfest.
Sure.
Then, not even 2 weeks later, you have First Lady Michelle Obama
Yep.
at the Ocean Center. The Romney crew brought in about 10,000 visitors to the band shell that night. She brought in about another 8,000, 8,500. That has to be something that has a trickle effect for the chamber and its
shows-
small business owners.
You're right, because it shows the significance of the I-4 corridor, Daytona Beach to St. Pete. And as they say, so the way that this area votes, so goes the state of Florida. So goes the state of Florida. You're talking 29 electoral votes. And so I'm sure those candidates, they want to make sure that they pay particular attention to those votes from St. Pete to Daytona Beach.
Now, before we wrap this interview up, and it's been very enlightening, I see you everywhere. If I go to a meeting in Daytona, you're at that meeting. If I go to the county council, you're there. If I go to one of the events on the street, you're there.
Sure.
Don't you have a life outside of the chamber?
I've got a very understanding
I know you have
wife.
a wife and you have children, and family, and
But they're very understanding now of my schedule. But that's part of government relations with the chamber, is that you can't stay cooped up in the office all the time. Is that you have to be out there meeting with these elected officials stuff and hearing what's going on and just making sure that you're staying on top of the issues.
as we wind down the new year, towards the new year, and of course today was supposed to be the day that the Mayan calendar was supposed to implode,
Oh,
and
yeah?
we're all supposed to be obliterated, and obviously we're still here. Christmas is about a week away, and New Year's is around the corner. What would you say is, looking into 2013, if you had to look into your Jim Cameron crystal ball, what would you say would be one of your biggest priorities for 2013 as the head of government relations at the Chamber of Commerce?
One of the things we're going to strive to do, and not necessarily issue-wise, but again, still maintain and get more communication between our local business people and local elected officials at the city and county level. But keep driving that issue, the importance of budget, a frugal budget, but more so that pension liability. Because again, if these elected officials do not address that sometime with hard decisions, you got the alternative.
Well,
And that's bankruptcy.
that's a that's a cold reality. Let's change gears before we go. And you're originally from Alabama,
Montgomery, Alabama.
and how long has it been since you've been? When did you come to Florida from Alabama?
1983.
So, do you get to go back at all, or?
Heading back next week.
So, what would be? Do you have are you like an Alabama Crimson Tide fan, or?
I was born in I was born in Tuscaloosa, 1954, homecoming weekend.
So Jim-
and
Yep, I'm
later
sorry.
went there to University of Alabama myself.
So
Graduated.
Jim Cameron, experienced government relations guru, Alabama native, Alabama #2,
Sure.
Notre Dame #1, BCS game, who wins?
Got to say Alabama, but it's going to be a close game. It will be a close game. Last I saw, Alabama was favored by 10 points. I think it's probably less than that, though. But you never know. Last year, LSU was favored.
Right.
And we just saw what happened with that game last year as well. But I think Alabama will come out on top.
Tell you what, I think it's going to be a 20 to 25 point differential with Alabama on top. Those SEC schools are real tough.
You never know. Yeah, let's see what happens.
Well, for Jim Cameron of
Thank you there, Henry.
Vice President of Government Relations for the
Regional
Daytona Regional Chamber of Commerce, this is Henry Frederick of Headline Surfer, and this has been the Sunday Conversation.
Thank you for having me. Yes, sir.